And so all the time, the world thinks Nick Leeson is this big trader, and he must be making a ton of money.
Yeah.
And the bank is promoting you and thinking you're the man as well?
Yeah, everybody was buying into the success story. I mean, if I wanted to go, this is a joke that I tell at some of the after dinners, but every broker would have employed me. So I often say, so Lehman's could have had their problems far earlier than they did if they'd managed to employ me.
But if you left, then of course they would find out your losses.
Exactly,
So even if someone offered you £5 million, you couldn't go.
No, because it would have been very short-lived.
Right.
Unless they're going to front load the £5 million that you're going for.
Okay.
But everybody was buying into the success story, and that includes my wife and family as well. So I was doing a discredit to everybody. The people that worked for me, the people that I worked for, my wife and family at the time as well. Like everybody, I just couldn't tell anybody what was going on. I think there was one occasion where I picked up the phoned somebody in London who wasn't involved in the industry, and I got half of the way to telling him. I was trying to unload or unburden, and maybe seek a piece of advice, but I just couldn't do it. There were so many people I respected and had the absolute respect for and a lot of time for, and I let them down so massively during that period. But it's just because I couldn't enunciate the failure. So for me, as much as we said at the beginning of our discussion that I was very success motivated, I had a huge fear of failure. And failure wasn't something that I could deal with. I still struggle to deal with it now. I find it easier to communicate it and to talk about it, which I think is a huge benefit. But I don't like failing, and most people fail at some point, and I try to use my experiences sometimes when I'm talking to an audience to say, just ask for help. You're surrounded by people in most organisations that you work for who've been down a similar path. They've chosen the right course of action. They might have chosen the wrong course for a period of time, but they've got a wealth of experience, and they can help you and they can point you in the right direction. So always ask for help and advice. I tell my kids the same. I wasn't a great communicator. I was quite introverted. I wasn't an extrovert. I wasn't living the high life when I was in Singapore, as much as the newspapers would like to tell you that I was driving a Porsche and I had a yacht and stuff like that. It's all rubbish, right? Because that just wasn't me. It was more about being successful. And so I tell my kids exactly the same thing. You're going to do things that are wrong in your life. Always tell me what's going on in your life. Don't hide anything. Communicate with me. I might have to punish you from time to time. It's going to be very short-lived. It's not going to be that bad, but you have to communicate with me. And I'm there to give you the benefit of my experience. You might think I'm an old fuddy-duddy half the time and I've got no idea what I'm talking about, but I in years to come, you'll look back on it and say, I'm glad I asked for that piece of help at that time, because I never did that. Right, and a lot of what happened to me comes from that seminal moment when I tried to do it myself and failed spectacularly from that particular point. So asking for help and advice, I think, is the most important thing people can learn.
Yeah, and even though people aren't trading, books with derivatives on them, cutting a loss is something we all do in life, and you can cut it at $10,000 or you can cut it at $1 billion.
Yeah,
we all know which one is easier, but nobody wants to face the pain, right?
Yeah, but whatever industry you're in, or whatever's going on in your personal life, the analogy is the same. If your body's telling you something could be, that an illness that's starting within your body, get some help. Ask people. Ask people what's going on. I was diagnosed with cancer whilst I was in prison in Singapore, and my mum died of cancer. My father, many years later, died of myeloma. I should have known more about it than I did. And when I was diagnosed with it, it was a huge wake-up call. And just being able to communicate, I think, is the most important thing that a human being can do. And if part of that communication is asking for help or asking for advice, if your body's telling you something that you know isn't right with you, or you just try to appraise your life and it's a million miles an hour and you're not really where you want to be, you know, taking your foot off the pedal is very, very difficult in everyday life. You know, I was forced to do that whilst I was in prison in Singapore, and as much as I don't thank the prison in Singapore for much that happened, because it was really, really tough, it did lead me to appraise where I was, who I was, strip back that veneer and really have a look at myself and come to the conclusion that I didn't particularly like the person that I'd become. And a lot of that was because of that huge need for success. So you then have to reappraise what success means in your life. And it's quite simple. You know, putting food on the table for your kids to eat is success. And as long as you can start to reframe the way that you think about things, I think you can move forward in a positive way. But
that's what success is to you today. That's what that means.
I wouldn't say, like, for me personally, I think the understanding of that concept is an important component of what success is. Do I live and die by that? No, I want a bit more. But I don't need what I was looking for before. So it's somewhere, and I'd be lying to you if I told you something else. It'd be really correct of me to say, you know, that is what success is now. I'd be lying to you if I did that. It's somewhere in between where it was, right. And you know, that analogy, that simplification that I gave you. I still want a bit more.